Live with Doug Chapman. We are both drinking coffee. It must be early in Michigan.
9 a.m., baby. Same as your time.
Oh, we got the same time zone in Michigan
Yeah.
and Florida.
Yeah.
Very cool. So,
You're in
Doug,
Florida?
I'm in Florida now. Yeah, last time we saw each other, I was probably still living in New York.
Dude.
So I'm in Florida. And brief introduction. Doug owns HyperFIT USA, which is also CrossFit Ann Arbor. Was that the first affiliate in Michigan?
Oh, yeah. We are actually, it was funny. I saw Chris Bowler had, he had been like the 8th or 9th affiliate back in the day. And now he's like, because of attrition, he's like the number one. And I went from number 13 to I think number 5 or 6 now overall in the world.
Yeah, when I had Chris Cooper on a couple of weeks ago, we were saying at the lounge at the games, they had a list of all the affiliates chronologically, and all of us had kind of moved up pretty high because I was like 200. So
What about the attrition rate on that? It's like, at one point, what we were pushing, 24,000 affiliates or 23,000, and now there's like 13. I don't remember. Do you remember the official things that we were talking about on staff? It was like they were saying like, "Oh, we can't wait till we hit 25,000." Remember that?
it's been getting up. Yeah, I know it was really high at one point. I don't remember the official numbers. I know they say today it's around 15,000 affiliates.
Yeah. So,
So
and then a lot of them, they think about how you moved up, right? It's like you started out at 127th and now you're 37, right? So you can map into whatever the attrition rate. I think, who was it? Jeremy Jones. Remember Jeremy from what was that? What was the thing? Is that he had the San Francisco Fire? It was the Diablo.
Oh yeah, Diablo CrossFit. Yeah.
He's like super engineering, kind of like super smart guy. And he had actually come up with a kind of an attrition model based on, remember they had all the affiliates on the old website?
In the chronological order. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and he did that a while ago. And I remember looking at it. I don't have that much time on my hands.
So you were now one of the first 10 or 20 based on attrition, but I don't know if you remember. I believe you were at my level 1 that I took in 2007 in Toronto.
Yep,
I remember meeting you there. I was impressed because you were on the website a little bit prior to that. What brought you to the level 1 crew back then? When did you get on there?
Well, the way it was done differently back then because nobody got paid to go, right? Everybody was, I remember it was a big deal when they started to pay people to go. And then they went to the level 2 thing. Do you remember when they went to the level 2 cert?
Well, they went to the cert, but originally it was if you just show up again, you're level 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what they had done was, they started, it was back in the day, and we would bring. Actually, I remember in Pittsburgh, I brought a couple of my friends over there, and they didn't have enough equipment at CrossFit Pittsburgh, and so I brought a carload of stuff. It's actually Bill Henniger and Chris Tamer and a few other people all rode out there. We all were all out there together because Chris had played for the Penguins back in the day. And we had a whole bunch of D-balls and medicine balls because they didn't have enough medicine balls at the time. I don't think they had enough of them. And so we brought them out in Chris's truck, and it was cool because it was the first time they did groups and they were evaluating instructors, and it was pretty cool. I think it was 2008.
The level 2s, yeah, I think, because I took mine in 2008. How long were you officially a part of the level 1 seminar staff?
Until 2014.
2014, and then you stepped down from staff?
Yep.
So one thing about you is you've had quite a few changes in your CrossFit journey, I suppose, going from, at one point, HyperFIT USA was a huge facility, correct?
Yeah, it was, remember, I started HyperFit in 2003. And in 2003, I started a kind of a boot camp program before I'd gone CrossFit. I was doing constantly varied functional movements that I executed high intensity anyway. It just kind of like when I met Glassman, I got like, oh, dude, this is like the, I found the book in the Bible that I was missing, right? And so I'd already had this personal training business and boot camp business. And so I had 175 people enrolled in my boot camp program, and then about 30 personal training clients. So I was working really, really full-time-ish. And so I went to go set up affiliate, and everybody's like, "Oh, yeah, get a storage container or get whatever they were doing." And I opened a place with 8,000 square feet at the beginning. It was 12 years. I was 11 or 12 years. I was in the same place.
And
So
then, so you shut down, and now HyperFit and CrossFit Ann Arbor is basically in your garage.
yeah, I'd have to send you a couple of pictures of it because it's pretty rad. Because I
Yeah,
took
we'll
all.
definitely post those pictures when people listen to this episode. So, we don't want to dive too far into the weeds, but I think a lot of people have gone through some of the same things you've gone through as an affiliate owner. I know I did myself, and it's frustrating. You have these coaches and you want to develop them, and ultimately it's like your kids, they leave the house, but sometimes they do it nice and sometimes they don't. We don't have to dive, too far. So whatever you're willing to talk about, but what were some of the changes that led to you, downsizing, if you will?
Well, the thing is that one of the key strategies I did differently. Like one of my good friends, he's going to meet me at 10 o'clock. So that's why he like this. I booked this whole thing in here. He owns another CrossFit affiliate, right? Good friend of mine. And my philosophy was, in order to have quality training, and what I call quality training, because there's a whole bunch of metrics you need to have in order to, quality, right? It's like Six Sigma. You need to be able to track metrics. And if the metrics aren't there, then you really don't have quality. You can have anecdotal stuff. Oh yeah, we got this, we got that. Bullshit. So my philosophy is I'm going to try and find a way to get guys to be full-time instructors and have professional coaches. So what you end up with is that also creates a weakness for the business, because you end up with 3 or 4, 3 guys, right? You have 45 classes a week or 40 classes a week. Everyone's getting 12 classes a week. Nobody is actually really full-time at that point, right? It's not really, and depending on what you're paying, people don't make a living or it's difficult. And so you supplement that by giving them personal training. So you can do that, right? And you can focus on quality instruction, progressions, really have kind of a paradigm of excellence, if you want to call it that way. Then there's an entirely different model, which is probably a better business model, because because each one of those instructors you have creates a cult of personality, right? Oh, I love my 9 a.m. class. It's fantastic. It's cool, right? That's the way they do it. But if they decide to go down the street or set up down there, it's like, you lose, you've got 300 members, you lose 100 members or 70 members or whatever it is. Or what they do is a lot of times they'll get some of the members, hey, listen, they must be making money hand over fist, and they'll set up down the street with money that's been bankrolled by some member, in your gym. That's been out of the places I know, that's happened a shit ton of the times.
That's actually, more common than people listening might realize. Like, they have their favorite coach that they want to support. They look at it as an opportunity for them to invest, someone that has money and wants to grow it in this coach. And then they bankroll the box. The coach has their own space. Spoiler alert, that typically doesn't end well, but it happens. I've seen plenty of people lose friendships multiple ways that way, but I think the big lesson becomes, wow, Doug was a lot better than this than I realized, and I didn't realize how hard he was working. But
well, it was different. That's one model, right? Where you have really kind of dependent on what you would call professional coaches, right? And one of the things I think that's one of the weaknesses of CrossFit in general as a business model is the lack of personal training. Coach Glassman started as a personal trainer. I started as a personal trainer. All the guys that were successful early on and continue to be to some extent are personal trainers. So in other words, in order to be a successful personal trainer, not only you have to have a quality instruction, a good personality, but you have to have a business acumen. Which, you take a 22-year-old kid that just got his level 1 6 weeks ago, and you put him in charge of a 5:30 class at any affiliate, he's going to have 25 people or 30 people in class, and he's going to think he's good because he has a bunch of people in class.
not realizing they're there because of the business got them there.
Yeah, absolutely. And they just end up what I call the difference between cueing, coaching, and actually training. And there's kind of this continuum of they parrot the latest, video that they saw on the .com. Oh yeah, hey, heels back, butt back, knees out, sit back. Oh yeah, cool. Keep your chest up. Keep keep the string between your belly button and sternum straight and strong, tight. They parrot rather
Yeah.
than understanding. It's like diagnosing problems. And when you do a lot of personal training, you work with a whole lot of very eccentric movement patterning. It's amazing.
Well, and
Go
you
ahead.
develop a lot as well. I was actually talking about this with my wife last night. She was working out. Our development has like a little gym, and there's a trainer that kind of hangs out in there and does this thing. And she was like, for one, I didn't realize what you did before CrossFit, because I was a trainer. And she was like, that's why you're pretty good at talking to people, because you had to be with them for an hour. And I was like, yeah. And I had to talk to people that I didn't really like that much or have anything in common with, not necessarily didn't like them, but older women for the most part. It's like, I don't have a lot in common with you, but I had to make a conversation. So you grow not only as a coach from that, I understand how to move people better, but just as a, socially understanding humans, emotional intelligence, all that stuff is happening when you're a one-on-one trainer.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
One of the models, it's, that's one model where you have professional coaches, right? And the thing is, we want to have professional coaching because, in all honesty, the people that talk shit about CrossFit in the marketplaces, they watch somebody doing something on a video on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, which is pretty asinine. And because they think, oh, this is going to be cool. It's constantly varied function movements, varied to the point of randomness. Remember that?
Yes.
And what they don't understand is that there's whole progressions that go with that. And what you're seeing is, it's like somebody that takes a gun and they shoot somebody, and it's totally that's not what they're for. They're there for personal defense. Now, if you use the gun inappropriately, you're bad on you, not bad on the gun, right? CrossFit's the gun. Guess what? If you use it incorrectly, bad on you. It has nothing to do with CrossFit because mechanics, consistency, intensity. Mechanics, consistency, intensity. So, model 1, professional training. Model 2, personality training. Think about this. You have a whole bunch of part-time guys that are trading for memberships. They're getting a free membership. They're showing up. They're reliable. They got other jobs, but people like them. And you walk into a class like that, and you see a third of the people moving pretty well. A third of the people like, ooh, yeah, they probably need stuff. And a third of people who shouldn't even be there, right? And so, but what they're doing is they're walking going, hey, Jason, good job. Good job. Dude, you are awesome. You're going to get so fit. You're amazing. And their personalities. But they're not professional trainers because it's not what they do. They get a free membership. They teach 6 classes a week. And the business does really, really well because they have really nice people. But the quality of the instruction, right? And it's a very conscious decision on the business owner's standpoint. From the business owner's perspective is, do you invest in someone who could fuck you in the end, excuse my language, or do you have a whole bunch of part-timers, fun people to be around, and you center your affiliate on socials and going out and people sleeping with other people type stuff? It happens all the time. Like, yeah, there's other stories like that. One of my trainers used to bag he was a bad dude.
So okay, you bring up some good points, and I totally understand what you're saying. How do you bridge the gap, and do you bridge the gap? Is it? I think part of what you're saying is it's okay. You ran more of a professional coaching side where you're developing people that can then leave. Mm-hmm. But how do we bridge that gap of, we want these people that are, I'd say a nice way to put it are cheerleaders. They throw some cues out, but they're just helping people have a good time, which is important. How do we get them to develop as professionals as well?
When you figure that out, you let me know and I'll open another brick and mortar.
That's the challenge. And that's, the people that I've had recently, Chris Cooper and Sean Pastuch, who just, who both have the same philosophy of, we need to develop professional coaches, but it is hard. And I think either box owners listening or coaches listening, all of that will resonate, because the average person listening probably is that personality coach. They train 2 to 4 hours a week, and it's hard. They just don't, it's time and money, right? They have a full-time job and they do this because they love it, not to spend thousands of dollars on professional development.
Let's step back and say that's okay.
Okay.
Now, so this was back in the day, 2002, 2003. So they charged it was at Bally's. Now it's LA Fitness. Now it's merged, and now that became, all this stuff, right? It's where I started training at, right? One of my old fraternity brothers was the PT director. So I go in there. And one, I had a unique background because I had been, way back in the early 90s when I first got out of college and an MBA, and then I ended up doing Wall Street stuff for a while for Smith Barney, and fucking hated it. And needless to say, I mean, sitting around, selling on the phone all day long, which is a challenge. And it's a different market now. So it had salesmanship skills. In other words, you learn how to, show people the value of what you have. If you can't show people the value of what you have a fantastic product that sits on a shelf. It's not good economics. So I'd had a combination of knowing about training and working out and being a former athlete and all of the stuff we would do. And then I had an ability to sell. So I think I did $100,000 in gross sales my first year as a trainer. So, which is not bad. And we'd sent a bunch of records, and there's a whole bunch of infrastructure that had happened at the time that doesn't exist anymore in that business, because they wanted to have professional personal training, but they didn't want the trainers to make money. So the split was, I think it was 40% or 50% for us. And so we're making, I'm charging $80 to $110 depending on the session at the time. And so you think about it, people are training 3 days a week, right? So I'm making, $50, $55 an hour doing personal training. But it had to, one, attract the client, two, retain the client. And so this was kind of a business within a business for those guys. And what happens with CrossFit is people, it's a group class based situation. So now, here you are as my new level 1 instructor. You now are officially qualified to go out and teach a class. And let's say that you've come out of the community anyway. And so you know how we do progressions and stuff. So basically what you are is your substitute teacher for whoever's running the business. And that's one of the things you run into with it. Now, when you ask the people who are trainers like that, hey, hey, Doug, I need to make more money. Yes, absolutely. So when was the last time you were at Starbucks and you asked somebody, hey, you know what? You're watching this video. You work out, strike a conversation, and bring them into the business. That's one of the real weaknesses of the class-driven model, right? Because you can't pay a high percentage based on a margin like, just your pool of revenue for general memberships, right? So that margin, you're always pushing against it. So you give the guys an opportunity, but they don't have the opportunity to sell. Everyone's afraid to sell. As level 1 staff, right? You think you're a great instructor. Here it is. Every weekend you get 60 people paying $1,000 a week or a month, or $1,000 not a month, a session, right? And you get out and we do the Shakespeare. We teach Shakespeare, right? We taught Shakespeare. I taught Shakespeare that way. But what it is we learn the same jokes. We pass those around. We have a personal link. But then when it comes down to diagnosing, why does this kid's hip shift as he comes out of the bottom of his squat versus, what he does? I'm thinking about a hockey player I train right now. It's like a 7th, 8th grader, and has a huge hip shift, has a huge dominance on one side versus the other, almost a scoliosis type thing. And the thing is that that's not what you learn. You learn cueing and how to run classes. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I'm following.
But you don't have the ability to train individuals yet. Spending an hour with an individual, you say you don't like them. I won't take anybody I don't like.
Well, this was back in the day. Yeah, I was just trying to pay bills. Now I'm the same way.
Yeah, it's like, I'm spending an hour of my life. We're sharing in a half hour, 45 minutes of our life together. You're a funny, cool dude. I've known you for how long, right? I'm excited to talk to you. That's how you should feel about your customers. And if your customer's a douchebag, you know what? They need to find somebody because it's a bad fit. They need to find somebody better that's going to fit better with them. So I think that's the major weakness in the model, is that we are class driven overall. And a lot of these trainers who might, I have one trainer that was, wasn't really being a trainer, kind of intern a little bit, pretty smart kid, whatever, couldn't sell a sandwich to a starving man. Like literally, you give the guy a lead, because what I did was everybody went through 10 private training sessions prior to joining classes. Did two things. Two things were, one, it made sure it was a good fit between that person and what we do. All right. The two things have to mesh together. And it gave the trainers a script to follow for those sessions. So they got very, very good at teaching the basics of CrossFit. So they would have a sheet that they would have a check mark on.
So let me ask you, I agree with what you're saying, and that it is a challenge. What I remember back in the day, I would try to sell one-on-one training. I would literally get like $15 out of the $60 that the gym was getting at Gold's Gym. So it was just, that's why I was training people I didn't like, because I just needed to, pay my bills. So you brought up earlier, I think it was before we got on, we recently had an episode on the on-ramp where we discussed just pros and cons. When you had the bigger affiliate model going, you did 10 one-on-one sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you get to that place? Did it start with 9 or 8, or was it just one day you went 10?
So before I had gotten involved in CrossFit, I had been, doing a lot of personal training and doing boot camps. And there was a gentleman down, I got hired to go and do some consulting work for this like multi-million-dollar personal training space in Indianapolis. And I went down, and his model was based off of a half-hour training session. So here's Jason, you send me an email that you want to join my gym. Fantastic. I respond. You come in, we set an appointment, you show up for the appointment, right? And then you go 10 half-hour sessions. Does two things. What we've done out of CrossFit is we made the price point for training so low that people don't see the value in training anymore. I'll just do a class. When those people really need personal training, they need to have somebody really correct their movement patterning. And so what this guy had done was that he wanted I brought my boot camp program to him and how to do it and how to set it up. And then I was looking at what he was doing business-wise. He was doing $1.5 million a year in revenue on personal training only. They didn't have a regular gym membership. There was just 1.5 on just personal training at the time, which was huge. Had a beautiful property, had this beautiful building, and they had the space. They were going to do a group class to fill in. And this was, a good chunk of it was just when I first got involved with CrossFit. And so I decided, and I had been converting my boot campers to being CrossFitters, right? So the price point for boot camps is very low. The price point in expertise cost is much higher for CrossFit because it takes a lot more expertise to run a CrossFit class. Run a boot camp class. If you've got abs and you're not completely a moron, you can run a boot camp program, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I don't sugarcoat things, do I?
No, that's all right. I don't think people want to hear sugar-coated stuff. So, but my question to you then would be, all right, so you have these CrossFit coaches out there now, and they do want to go from, hey, I'm the 2-hour a week, 4-hour a week to make this a living. What's your advice on how you convince people to do personal training? Because you're right, the benefit and the beauty of CrossFit is it's, $150, train as much as you want in a group session, you get some one-on-one attention. But now we have to take a step back and say, that's why we brought you here, but we actually think you need to pay $100 an hour to develop, better squat balance. You want to learn how to do a kipping pull-up. This is what we need to do, etc. What's the path to that?
So the path is this. So what I had done is I was like, okay, I had this problem because guys couldn't sell personal training. None of the guys, one of the major mistakes I made, none of the trainers I had, all the way top to bottom in my entire career, were successful trainers on their own. They never came in with it. So they never had the ability to do that. So, but everybody would join. Let me talk about the process and how people did personal training. So you send me an email. I didn't have a phone number on my website because, one, I wanted to have somebody that can follow instructions. And you're screening out people that don't fit. Because if somebody doesn't fit into your business, your culture, then they don't belong in your business. So if somebody can't follow basic instructions, send an email, make an appointment, right? So now this person has interacted with us 3 or 4 times prior to even walking in the door, right? And the worst thing you can have happen is somebody walks in the door during a class, there's an instructor on the floor, and you don't have money for a front desk staff, right? So they wander around a little bit, cash box disappears, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they go, hey, you give them an intro session. And this is the one we built off of Andy Petronic's thing, which was the baseline. Remember the baseline?
Yes, the baseline test.
Yeah, absolutely. And now people understand that the process of training for CrossFit requires a brain. So here you are, you're super deconditioned, right? And I teach you how to do your technique. Everything we have has technique. So I'm selling you on a concept idea of, listen, we're going to teach you how to do everything you need to know. You snatching a barbell on your first day is malpractice, right? So, but how do you build that up so you have a progression, a series of curriculum? How do you learn English when you're a kid, right? And then all the way through college. So they have 10 sessions. And then what we did is that amongst the staff, we would rotate. So you would go to me the first time, maybe, then you go to the next person. And so we all get to know you. So if there's any we've seen you move. So you show up to class. 1, we know your name. 2, we've seen you move. And 3, we have some sort of semblance of a relationship. Okay. And that's important because that person needs to be valued, welcomed, and respected. So I value you coming to my business. I want you there. And we respect you because we're not going to just throw you into a class without proper training. And then you think about the lawsuits that have come into CrossFit, that's where people are just throwing them into a class, and a lot of times don't even have a waiver on them. So we would have this process of teaching these people, and they would baseline at the beginning, go through their progression, which was all of the basic skills and everything they needed to know to be able to scale generally in a class, so that you're not taking up 90% of the coach's time if you're kind of a movementally challenged person.
Good way to put it.
I don't know. I had something more impolite, but I actually chose polite for a change.
So people, if they went through this, found you, emailed you, etc., they would do. What was the cost of these 10 sessions?
Well, it was $350
for
so
10.
$55 a half hour.
That's not bad price.
It's very cheap price.
Yeah.
And what happens is that now part of the concept is that we're training you to be responsible for your own training. So you need to show up 15, 20 minutes early. You're supposed to. And on the first day, we teach you how to warm up. So you row 1,000 meters and you do what we 30, 20, and 30. When I first climbed CrossFit, okay, how are we going to teach average people to do a squat? So I got wood dowels before we got PVC pipes back in the day.
Before Rogue started selling PVC.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then, and so we'd have them practice 30 air squats, 20 pass-throughs, because most people have really shitty shoulders, and then 20 overhead squats to a ball. And it's all with a PVC pipe. They're supposed to do that on their own. And then we teach them how to mobilize, where they would go out and do tissue preparation prior to doing it. So they get in the habit of, they come to a class is an hour. I want you there early, and you're taking care of all your things. So build that culture, right? And then at the end, a lot of times we would set up a workout that would extend past that half hour, right? But you don't need a whole lot of coaching to do an air squat and a push-up or whatever, some sort of simple thing, but you need enough of a metabolic hit to make changes happen. So that session that was a half hour, you're a half hour paid with the instructor, but the other half hour, you're there on your own, taking care of yourself. And the idea is that we educate, we motivate, and we lead. We're not babysitters. And that is a huge thing for your culture of the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. You're just developing good quality members by doing that.
You ever see that Julie posts this every once in a while, one of the 10 sessions of her intros. That thing where she said, like, when she was first, she's got Bambi knees and the whole bit, right? You know, it's like her 6th or 7th session, but she posted, I got 1 million hits on it on my YouTube channel. It's pretty crazy. But that wasn't special. I used to video every single session I did. And I would do it in 2 directions, one from the like kind of a 45 and one from kind of this area, right? So that I would go back and I would put them together, and then I would review it and see is like, I would listen to what I was saying and cueing versus what, you know, was happening in front of me. So like a lot of times I would watch a session, I would watch your session, Jason, and I would evaluate my performance as an instructor. Oh man, I didn't, you know, like their weight was shifting forward. That's why their heels were coming up. It wasn't because they have tight heel cords, right? You know, whatever. And I would evaluate them. So I literally have thousands of sessions. Literally, I got like 3,000 videos on my YouTube channel, and a good chunk of them are evaluations of training. And so I'd have all my staff were supposed to. They didn't do it because some of them weren't super motivated all the time. They're supposed to video their session and then take some time to review it, especially as they're going through their complex. We had a complex we followed, and that allows you to, you know, it leads to your professional training, right? So where does your eye go? You ever do the drill where it's like, okay, where does your eye go? What are you seeing? And so you look at where, hey, I'm watching the heels right now, and I'm watching as he's going through a squat. The weight's going to shift fore and aft on his foot, right? And should it be? And how much should it be? How much is going to be like reasonable, and like why? What's the causation of it? What's causing that shift in the foot? That would be one thing. And the videos allowed us to do that. And Julie kept sharing that. She shares it every year because it's an anniversary thing, and she's kind of a cool and traditional person. And but I have, you know, and she didn't. If you look at the video, she doesn't look special compared to anybody else. But that adherence to mechanics, consistency, intensity, was one of the major differences for us, you know, and what we did. And that intro session package was huge, huge.
So we'll definitely want to find out what your YouTube, but for people that are listening, you're referring to Julie Fouché. You were her original coach in CrossFit.
Yeah.
So I've not seen that video. I'll have to check it out, but I think that's really important. What you said is coaches evaluating their own coaching. Mm-hmm. That's how you're going to, I mean, if a coach is listening and they're thinking, okay, what Doug is saying is resonating, I'm in, you need to improve as a coach. That's a simple and easy way to do that.
Yeah. So I went through a situation where I do my staff, you're talking about staff development, where you practice, you know, like your 9 foundational movements, right? Everybody learns them at level 1, right? Oh, I got this. I'm going to dip, drive. I'm going to press overhead. Dip, drive, press. Oh, fantastic. Now let's go ahead and speed this up a little bit and see if we can make falls happen, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine if I put a mic on you and we video you teaching that series, and then we evaluate you as an instructor and you get to hear what you say. And you hear the, hey, Jason, like, I want you to put your, who's cool? I want you to put your thumbs on your shoulders and say, oh, I'm cool. Yeah, I'm cool. All right, cool. Okay. Now we're going to dip and we're going to dip and drive, right? We're going to dip and drive. We're going to dip it. No. Wait, remember, you got to be vertical. Oh yeah. Not dip and drive, you know, and you catch all that shit and you're super self-conscious and it's absolutely horrible. But when you see yourself teach, you go, ooh, now you got that leads to professional instructors. People that don't go or have weird colloquialisms. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
First of all, this is audio, but I'll put the video up of you doing all of this because I'll put it on our YouTube channel.
That's actually good. That's good.
So I'll make sure we have it. But it's funny because some people may be listening and think that was the best progression for the push press I've ever heard. So they're not, they're not grasping.
In fact, I look like a monkey fucking a football.
Well, they're not grasping that, and they're not grasping a lot of the bad stuff happening because maybe they don't know. And I told the story when I had somebody chatting about their intern program on. When I used to do my intern, we would film, and I would have them film. And I had a guy just like that, and he was super professional in the real world, talked really well. And he would say, okay, every other word when he coached. Okay. And I called him over and I was like, let's watch this. I said, let's count how many times you say okay. He said, I didn't. The first time he watched it, he goes, I didn't say it once. And I looked at him, I said, are you being serious? Like, you're messing with me right now. I go, let's watch it. I'm going to do a dash every time you say it. And then finally, he caught it. And this is a really smart, really financially well off, has a big deal job. So imagine if you're new to this, how much you can pick up from watching yourself coach. I think that's invaluable what you're talking about.
It takes time, and if you are, and it leads to back to our original problem. You have a professional coaching staff, or you have a whole bunch of part-timers, or you have they call it like the good old quality mixed economy, where you have some socialist policies and some Republican policies, but some of them are kind of mixed. And where you have three professional trainers, or two professional trainers, and the rest are just part-timers. The mixed economy. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's exactly, one of my boxes, that's what I had. 4 or 5 guys that would, train all day, and then a couple that would just show up, and you get mad at the ones that aren't giving their all because you have these guys that are willing to develop.
Yeah.
So
it's a problem. I don't know if it's a problem, because it depends on if, one, are you making money? 2, are your customers happy? And you know what? People that live down in the holler in West Virginia think it's some of their behaviors are okay.
Yeah. If we
hey, my mom and dad get divorced, are they still brother and sister? I don't
know. If people are willing to video themselves and develop, do you have 1 or 2 other tips you would give to somebody listening that says, all right, I do want to take these steps and improve as a coach?
I would say make sure that your entry program is consistent. So in other words, if I say, okay, these are the minimum level of MLC, minimum level of competencies that a person needs to have in order to do a class, right? How do you do a class? What are the minimum level progressions you have to be able to know as an instructor and as a consumer in order to participate in a class? Because if you're not leading people through progressions, that's not quite the thing.
So everybody needs to have the consistency. People need to develop at least the ability to do a certain number of movements and do them properly, mechanics. What else would you say? What would be one other tip you would give a coach?
And I would think is that how you operate your classes need to be consistent. So in other words, how Jason teaches a class, how Doug teaches a classes, how Catherine teaches a class needs to be consistent. They need to be homogeneous, where it's kind of, okay, so we start on time. We've all had those instructors that don't start on time.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy, right? And then they go over when you have back-to-back classes. And so the class in front, you can't do the warm-up because everybody is still breaking down all their equipment from the class before. And then there's a social, you follow me? It's like those things need to be executed consistently. The other thing is I really had done a lot of was this thing called coaching behind the lens. So one of the things that I had done, and actually we'd had Picasa back in the day, we would upload all of our photos. And so in every class, part of the social interaction between the coach and the client was to make sure that you talk to everybody in the class a minimum of 3 times. So if I'm walking around, I have a good pattern for how you're set up. So, but what they would do is like, hey, Jason, I want you to stay back in your heels a little bit more. Let me show you. And they'd have this Canon. I think it was a 60D at the time. And they would shoot a series of photographs, right? And then they would go, hey, take a look at this. And then they would say, the customer would go, oh, I get it. Because they can't visually, proprioceptively, they're just not there yet, right? And so the people would go to these things, and they would get mad if we forgot to upload the pictures, because they would pull out the pictures and use them for their social media, because we would have really cool photos. And I got like 240,000 photos, and I'm not exaggerating. I looked the other day, I'm like, God, I got too many photos and videos, and of people doing classes and training. And it was it's cool for social media, but you get a chance to see yourself operate, in other words, you might, hey, my buddy Ed, I teach him how to do Krav Maga. I'm a Krav Maga instructor. And so I'm like, okay, Ed, okay, put your hands in front of your face. And he puts his hands in front of his face. Said, are they at eye level? He goes, yeah, they're at, he's like this. He goes, yeah, they're at eye level. Are you sure? Where are your eyes at? Your eyes at where your nipples are. No, bring them in front of your face. You know, it's just basic stance stuff. And because he's a Ford MBA type, super brilliant, just retired, good buddy of mine for many, many years, has nicest guy on the planet, has like, he's driving around, his car's driving around with nobody at the wheel because he doesn't move his body real well. He's got, hey, here's this, but it's true. And I would, you know, and I'm going to do what I can to help him out on, again, to move better.
And anybody that didn't own an affiliate back in the day, like we did, cannot understand the fact that we had to upload all those pictures like that before Facebook, before smartphone. I used to upload 12 at a time to my TypePad website.
That was awesome.
Yeah. But you're right. And people, you know, if they weren't up by like 10 o'clock, people, where are the pictures up?
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, nightmares coming back. This is some great advice for new coaches. I always like to ask everyone, do you have a book you recommend people read?
Yes. Well, I do a book of the week for my people that are my programming. And the reason is that one is I think that people don't read enough. You know, we scan articles, we do podcasts, and we do stuff like that, which I think is fantastic. I think I recommend a bunch of books. I just did I love Robert Greene's books. Robert Greene, his latest book is, like, just right here. Oh yeah. The Laws of Human Nature.
Oh, yeah, I see that one at the airport all the time, yeah.
Well, the thing is with this guy, I mean, Robert Greene does some amazing research and has a lot of historical things that go along with it. I just, a couple of weeks ago, I live in Michigan. It's relatively near Ann Arbor. Okay, so I want to preface this. I read Urban Meyer's book from Ohio State. And the reason is one of the guys I know is a high-level football coach, but he recommended, you ever heard of Focus 3?
I've not.
Tim Kite has a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, actually anything written or if you can get into the classes by Tim Kite, definitely worth it. And you know, these are all current event type things. I will say this is if you're living in the United States of America and you haven't read Atlas Shrugged or The Fountainhead, you're wrong. You know, you got to get past some of the volume of it all. But the key problem that people have in general, it doesn't have to do with business or politics or anything else, is we don't have a philosophy that we really adhere to, right? You know, our philosophy in CrossFit's mechanics, consistency, intensity. We're developing work capacity across broad time and modal domains, right? That's what our philosophy is. And so now if everything that you do filters through those gateways, right? So if you're programming something, is this adherent to mechanics? Yes or no? Have we done this often enough to have a good pattern? Okay. And then can we raise the intensity level in a safe manner? Yes or no? Are we creating work capacity? What's the work capacity is our goal? You know, those are the things that our philosophy in CrossFit, right? What's our social philosophy? What's our political? What's our economic? And have those things, because we're in a day and age where we have an attention span of the half-life of one of those really big freaking molecules at the end of the periodic table that they're there for like nanoseconds, or if that, right? Our attention spans are wrong. And I think that people need to really establish who they are and what they're about and figure out, you know, what fits into your philosophy and what does not. I think if that's one thing that's outside of this realm of thrusters and burpees is figure out what the hell you're doing and why you're doing it.
Solid advice. And I'm about halfway through Atlas Shrugged, and when I'm done, I'll have to have you back on for an Atlas Shrugged discussion.
Who is John Galt?
Who is John Galt? So where can people find you on the internet? You mentioned your YouTube channel. What's that?
I don't know.
Well, I'm sure if they go on YouTube and search Doug Chapman or HyperFIT USA, they'll find you, right?
I think so.
And
I've got, like, honestly, you know, I'm not one of the things that really irritated me about the trend. I think it's the same thing why Coach Glassman kind of has gotten away from the game so much. I think he got tired of booty shorts and attitudes and like nobody that was interesting to talk to, and they live in social media and do my white booty shorts make my ass look good. Well, at my age, 51, I got news for you. My ass ain't what it once was. So it's like, hey, gotta do it. I'm not much in that. I got HyperFit USA on Instagram, which is cool. I usually put something. I try to put fun. People don't get my sense of humor, so I had to create a fictitious person that I am for the other ones.
Well, we'll definitely check you out on HyperFit USA. Look for him on YouTube, and whether you look for him or not, understand that was a great tip that you dropped to video yourself, and not just about the athletes moving, but what you're doing. So, Doug, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I'm excited to, man, Atlas Shrugged, like you said, you have to get over that size. I'm about 60% into it. It's a great book. I'm excited to finish it, but it's.
Where are you at right now?
Oh, I'd have to think for a second. Let's see.
Has she gotten to Galt's Gulch yet?
No. I'm not even on part 3. I'm still like deep into part 2.
Awesome. Non-contradiction.
Yeah, it's tough, but I'm enjoying it. It's like you said, I think it's something. It was one of those things where I think everybody should do it in their life, and I'm gonna finish it hopefully within the next month or 2.
The other author, I think, at Parodies that Miss Rand is Jordan Peterson.
Jordan's great. I just finished the 12 Principles.
So my first book from him was his Maps of Meaning. Over my head in so many ways. It was pretty intense, and then I just got the 12 Laws a while ago. That's good.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Hey, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day, Doug.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right, on Spotify you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, one more time, please leave us a review on Apple Podcast and send us any feedback you have to @besthouroftheirday on Instagram and besthouroftheirday@gmail.com if you want to shoot us an email. We appreciate you. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.